Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're heading straight into a really significant situation unfolding in West Bengal, the protests in Murshidabad.
hmm
You've shared a really interesting mix of material with us, news reports, a detailed survey note, digging into some background, and even, social media reactions.
Yeah, quite a range.
Our goal here is to really understand what's been happening, the core drivers behind these protests, and where things stand right now. We want to give you a clear picture without getting sort of bogged down.
Exactly. And looking at what you've provided, it's clear this isn't just a local flare-up. Not at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it taps into some really fundamental questions, I think, about how religious institutions are managed
Mm,
and the relationship between those institutions and, well, the state.
okay.
It's a conversation happening nationally, really.
Mm,
But Murshidabad has become a kind of vocal point.
right. Okay, so let's start with what seems to be the catalyst, the Waqf Amendment Act 2025. Now, for anyone listening who might not know this offhand, what exactly are Waqf properties? What role do they play?
Well, think of WAC properties as being like um, dedicated trusts under Islamic law. They're endowments,
For
basically.
endowments.
Yeah, made for religious or charitable purposes.
Oh.
Historically, they've supported a huge range of community needs: mosques, schools, hospitals, even just aid for the poor.
So pretty significant.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're a really significant part of the social and religious fabric in many Muslim communities in India, and they have this long history of self-management.
Okay, self-management. And this new Amendment Act, the 2025 one, what are the key changes it introduces that have caused such a strong reaction?
There are a couple of really key shifts. One of the most significant, I'd say, is the provision allowing non-Muslim individuals to be appointed as members of WAC boards.
Ah, okay. That sounds like a big change from tradition.
It is. Traditionally, these boards have been composed entirely of Muslims. The other major change is an increase in the oversight role of the state.
Oversight, meaning.
Well, in the administration and management of these properties.
Mhm.
So things like stricter audits, potentially more state involvement in decisions.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting. So, if we connect that back to the protests, the core concern seems to be this feeling within some Muslim communities that these changes could erode their religious autonomy.
Precisely.
Like the state might start interfering in ways they haven't before.
That's a crucial point, and it's definitely highlighted in that survey note you shared.
Mm.
There's a palpable concern, that greater state involvement could lead to a dilution of the religious character of these endowments
Solution, okay.
and potentially undermine the community's ability to manage its own affairs related to these properties.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have a long history of self-governance, any perceived shift towards external control,
Mm.
well, it understandably creates apprehension.
Yeah, I can see that. But on the other side, the act also talks about modernization, right? Things like digitizing records, more regular audits. What's the rationale there? What problems are they trying to solve?
Yeah, the argument in favor of those measures is rooted in needing more transparency and efficiency. Because over the years, there have been instances of mismanagement, encroachment on walk land, lengthy legal disputes. These things happen.
Right. Practical problem.
Exactly. So digitization aims to create a clear, accessible database, making it harder for, say, illegal activities to go unnoticed. And regular audits are meant to ensure funds are used correctly, prevent corruption. That push for modernization and accountability is mentioned in some of the reporting.
So it's a real tension, isn't it? That desire for better governance clashing with concerns about religious freedom and community control.
Absolutely. A classic tension in some ways.
And it sounds like this isn't an issue confined just to Murshidabad. You mentioned it's national.
Definitely. The fact that we're seeing reports of similar discussions, even protests, in places like Delhi, Hyderabad, Lucknow, it really underscores that this is a nationwide conversation.
Okay.
It suggests a broader unease, perhaps a need for more clarity or dialogue around what this legislation really means for Muslim communities across India.
Okay, so that gives us the backdrop. Now let's focus on Murshidabad specifically. Our sources say the protests there really intensified around April 8th, 2025. What do we know about how things escalated?
Right. The survey note details how initial demonstrations kind of grew, building up to that significant blockage at the Umarpur crossing on National Highway 12 in Janjapur.
NH12, okay. A major highway.
Yeah. Around midday, protesters blocked the highway completely. And when law enforcement tried to clear the area, well, the situation unfortunately turned violent.
That seems to be the turning point.
It really seems like it.
Right.
From demonstration to outright confrontation.
And this is where we start hearing about stone pelting and even police vehicles being set on fire. Sounds really volatile.
Indeed. Reports indicate protesters started throwing stones at the police, and tragically, yeah, some police vehicles were set ablaze.
Wow.
The police then responded with lethal charges, baton charges, and used tear gas to try and disperse the crowd, regain control. It was a rapid and, frankly, concerning escalation.
The survey note also points to the role of rumors in fueling this. How did misinformation play a part?
This is such a critical aspect, especially these days. In moments of high tension, misinformation just spreads like wildfire, doesn't it? Especially online.
Social media.
Exactly. The note highlights that rumors started flying around alleging serious injuries, even deaths of protesters, often unverified claims.
And that just pours fuel on the fire.
Completely. It inflames public anger, deepens mistrust between communities and authorities, and unfortunately can incite more violence. Makes de-escalation incredibly difficult.
Which leads us to the really tragic part, the human cost. We have reports of at least 3 deaths confirmed.
Sadly, yes. The sources confirm at least 3 fatalities. A father and his son were found with stab wounds. This was in their home in Jaffrabad, under the Samsudin jurisdiction.
It's terrible.
And additionally, a teenager who was reportedly involved in the protest died from injuries sustained during the clashes.
Do we know how the teenager was injured?
Well, there have been reports, particularly circulating on social media platform X, suggesting the injuries might have been caused by gunfire.
Okay.
But official confirmation on the exact cause of death seems to be still pending, based on the info we have. Either way, these are deeply tragic losses.
Absolutely devastating. And beyond the loss of life, we're also seeing a significant number of arrests.
Yes, the latest information suggests over 110 individuals have been arrested in connection with the violence.
Over 100.
Yeah. And furthermore, reports indicate that police operations, including raids, have been ongoing not just in Murshidabad itself, but also spreading to neighboring districts like Malda and South 24 Parganas.
So it's spreading, or authorities are being very proactive.
It suggests, perhaps, authorities are taking a broad approach to contain the unrest and maybe apprehend those they believe were involved, or could incite further trouble.
Okay, so what has been the official response from the police and the government? How are they trying to manage this?
Well, the immediate response was a large deployment of police forces,
Right.
including specialized units like the Rapid Action Force, the RAF,
Right, the RAF.
aimed at restoring order. Prohibitory orders were imposed, basically banning large gatherings.
Section 144.
Likely, yes. And a key measure, which we see often now, was the suspension of internet services in the region.
To curb rumors and mobilization, presumably.
That's the stated aim, yes, to control the flow of information.
And it seems the judiciary also got involved.
That's correct. On April 12th, the Calcutta High Court issued a pretty significant order. They mandated the deployment of nearly 300 personnel from the Border Security Force, the BSF.
The BSF, that's interesting. Central Forces.
Yes, a central armed police force. The court also requested additional central forces, which suggests a perceived need for a strong, maybe impartial security presence to stabilize things.
And we've seen key administrative figures stepping in too.
Yes, both the district magistrate of Murshidabad, Rajarshi Mitra, and the ADG for Law and Order, Judge Shamim, have been very active.
What have they been saying?
Issuing appeals for calm, reassuring the public that action is being taken against rumor mongers and those inciting violence, trying to de-escalate and restore some public trust.
Okay. Now, shifting gears a bit to the political arena, this has clearly triggered reactions from various political parties. What are the main viewpoints being expressed?
The Chief Minister, Mamata Banerjee, has made a very clear statement. She's asserted that the Waqf Amendment Act will not be implemented in West Bengal.
Won't be implemented.
Yes, and she's also accused certain political parties of exploiting religious sentiments for political gain here.
Okay. And what about the opposition, the BJP?
The state BJP president, Sukanta Majumdar, has been highly critical of the state government's handling of it all. He's alleged that Hindu communities faced attacks, referencing the timing near the Kartik Puja festival, and he's actually called for an NIA probe, a National Investigation Agency investigation.
NIA, so suggesting something deeper, maybe organized?
That seems to be the implication, yes.
Yeah.
That there might be organized elements involved.
And the Congress Party, what's their take?
A prominent Congress leader from the region, Adhir Chaudhry, he offered a different perspective. He blamed what he called police high-handedness for actually exacerbating the violence.
So blaming the police response.
Yes, And he also highlighted the demographics of Murshidabad, pointing out that Muslims make up over 70% of the population there.
Why is that relevant in his view?
Suggesting, I suppose, that this context is important for understanding the intensity of the community's reaction to the act, given the large Muslim population.
Right. It definitely sounds like this issue is rapidly becoming a political football, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Different parties framing the events and the legislation itself in ways that fit their narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also seeing organizations like Amen actively campaigning against the act, portraying it as something that marginalizes the Muslim community.
So the political fallout is likely to continue.
It seems very likely, yes, extending well beyond just Murshidabad.
So, bringing us right up to the present moment, as of the time our sources were last updated around mid-morning Pacific time on April 12th, what was the situation on the ground then?
According to the information available at that specific time, officials described the situation as tense but stable.
Tense but stable. Okay.
They reported no new incidents of violence had occurred since that morning. But, it's crucial to remember this is just a snapshot. Things can change fast.
Of course.
Ways.
But there's still a heavy security presence and ongoing disruptions.
Yes, absolutely. The area continues to be under close watch. Ongoing patrols by local police and those deployed Central Forces, the BSF.
Right.
And despite no new violence reported at that moment, there were still reports of continued internet throttling.
Still throttled.
Yeah, and some train services in the area were halted. So, these measures suggest authorities were still being very cautious, trying to prevent any resurgence and maintain control.
Okay. We also have that helpful table in the survey note laying out the timeline. Maybe we can just quickly walk through the key points again just to cement the sequence.
Sure, yeah, good idea. So it really kicks off around April 8th with those initial protests escalating, the highway blockade, and then the first clashes.
Right, that turn to violence.
Exactly. Then over the next couple of days, April 9th, 10th, the situation stays tense. Police use crowd control, first wave of arrests.
Okay.
By April 11th, it seems the unrest might have spread a bit geographically. More arrests in different parts of the district, those police raids starting in neighboring areas too.
Expanding reach.
Seems so. Then, April 12th, we get that deeply concerning news of the confirmed deaths.
Yeah.
Followed quickly by the High Court order and the significant deployment of the BSF, the Central Forces, which appears to have contributed to that tense but stable situation reported later that morning.
Okay, that's a good summary of the progression. So, to sort of bring it all together then, the central issue we've been exploring is this significant tension in Murshidabad. It stems from the Waqf Amendment Act, 2025. And this tension, it's fueled by concerns, particularly in some Muslim communities, about losing religious autonomy.
Right.
And that's unfortunately boiled over into significant public unrest and, sadly, violence.
That's a concise and accurate summary, I think. It really highlights the complexity, doesn't it? You've got legislative changes touching on deeply held beliefs,
Yeah.
community reactions driven by those beliefs in history, and then the inevitable intersection with politics, both regional and national. It's all intertwined.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how carefully these kinds of legislative changes need to be considered, especially when they touch on religious freedoms, managing religious institutions.
Absolutely.
How do governments strike that balance between needing modernization, oversight, accountability,
Yeah.
and respecting the rights and autonomy of religious communities?
A fundamental question.
And what are the potential long-term consequences, socially, politically, when that delicate balance feels disrupted? It's definitely a situation with many, many layers. And understanding the different perspectives involved is just crucial. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me today.
My pleasure. A complex but important situation to unpack.